Well, recently there's been an awful lot of interest here in the state on mushroom growing, not only for a commercial basis, but also for a hobby or for growing in the home garden. And today we're very fortunate to have with us Bill Collins of Biotech Design and Research out of Enid, who is really in the mushroom business, among other things. Bill, welcome to Oklahoma Gardening. It's
Thanks very much.
a real pleasure to have you on the show. And you've got some interesting things to show us here today about, I think, the shiitake mushroom.
Shiitake, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do we got here? What you were scraping this log, of course, as we opened up here, but what did you got here?
Well, what we got, these are just common old blackjacks, which are all over Oklahoma. Being an oak species, it's one of the best things to grow the shiitake mushroom on. What I was doing was cleaning the small lichens and some of the other trash off of the bark so that when we start drilling for our plugs, we don't contaminate any of the holes and therefore contaminate our logs.
So we're going to take this log and actually plug it or inoculate it with the shiitake spores, allow those to grow, and then eventually we'll have shiitake mushrooms growing off of this.
Actually, we're not going to use the spores. We're going to use the actual tissue or the mycelium of the mushroom to actually start the whole thing.
Now, is this about the same type of log that would be used in commercial operations for growing shiitake?
Yeah, generally speaking, we use a log in diameter between 4 and 6 inches and around 40 inches long. It's an easy size to be handled, and it shows a little uniformity there, and so therefore you can build all your equipment around that.
Okay. Well, how do we get started doing this?
Well, we've got the log cleaned, so if you'd like to start drilling some holes here, we want to start about 6 inches from the end of the log, and then about 7 to 8 inches along here, we'll just drill a hole and we'll start plugging her.
Now we're drilling these holes at about a what diameter?
These are 5/16 holes. Our wooden dowels or plugs are about 3/4 of an inch long.
What have you treated these plugs that you're going to be putting in here?
Well, they've been inoculated under sterile conditions in a laboratory with the mycelium of the particular variety that we're going to grow, and they've been allowed to grow on these wooden dowels that we have contained here. The white part that you see is the mycelium, or the actual cells of the mushroom.
Okay, and how do we get them in there?
Well,
I assume this hammer is for...
Yep, and what I'll do is I'll stick them in there and then you tap them with the hammer.
Okay.
We want to stick them right down in the hole like that.
Now, Bill, tell us a little bit about the value of this mushroom. I know it's highly used for culinary purposes, but what are some other uses of this mushroom as well?
Well, common uses like in Japan and China, it's used for treatment of cancer and AIDS, leukemia, several other different types of diseases, kidney diseases, blood diseases, everything like that. It's used for medicinal purposes also.
This mushroom, I understand, is a fairly high nutritional
very
species.
There's about 25%, 12 to 25% protein in the average mushroom, along with all the other properties that you get from it, you know. It's and besides that, it's a delicious mushroom, wonderful mushroom.
Once we get these in here now, you put several rows around this entire log, and then I think you'd mentioned earlier we need to seal this off to keep moisture in and contaminants out. Is that correct?
What we normally do after that, we use some wax. Now today we're using cheese wax, which happens to be a little more flexible than using paraffin or some of the other type waxes. I've dropped my little dauber down in here.
All right.
Okay. And what we'll do is then we'll go right on top of the plug and dab a little bit of wax on there. And what that does, it seals the moisture in and also seals the wound or the opening from having any contaminants enter at that area.
Now, today we're inoculating this log, and then it has to be placed into a particular environment for the mycelium to go ahead and incubate and start formation of the spores in there for the growing of the mushroom. Is that correct? What
we'll do is we'll put it in about 80% shade, and where the humidity would be high, 75, 80% or 85% humidity. And then a log this size, in about 4 to 6 months, if all of our conditions are held at that point, the ends of the log will turn white. And at that point, the log is completely permeated with the mycelium.
And under normal growing conditions, like out in the forest, for example, in a pine forest or a hardwood forest, that shade would be under the shade of the tree. But here we've built a little shaded area to put these under to let them go ahead and incubate. And how long is it going to be before we can see mushrooms growing on this log?
Well, actually, with our conditions and our weather like it has been, I'd say about 4 months we'll see the log this size. It's already with the white ends and everything. And at that point, we can either soak the log or we'll water the logs for about 24 hours, lowering the temperature and raising the humidity and moisture in the log. And within about 10 days after that, we should see little pins coming up, or little tiny mushrooms. And then after that, you just keep on picking them.
Well, I know that this is sort of is really the procedure by which these are grown commercially for commercial sales. But it also worked well if a person had these supplies, they could grow these in their own home garden or part of but you also have some other types of mushrooms. Tell us just very briefly a little bit about these other types of mushrooms. The poor person could get some supplies if they wanted to grow their own.
Well, you know, there's other types like what we call an oyster mushroom, which is another wonderful mushroom that can be grown on logs or other types of substrates, even straw. And it tastes like seafood. And it also has some medicinal properties. Red wine stropharia, some of the European type buttons, which are not like the white ones like we see in the store, but more of a brown. And there's many other species that anyone can grow. Actually, with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of luck, you'll do fine.
Yeah, great. Well, Bill, I wish we had more time to talk about this because it looks like it's very interesting and fascinating. I know that a lot of people are interested in it, but we really appreciate you coming down and sharing this with you. And I know you've got a wealth of information, and it's been real interesting having you demonstrate this for us.
Well, it's been I had a lot of fun this morning anyway, so it's anytime.
Great. Well, thanks a lot for being on Oklahoma Gardening.
Sure. Thanks.
Well, it's been about a week since Ray and Bill plugged these logs, and the mycelium is already starting to grow, so that means we should have some production hopefully around August. Well, and as usual, the Extension Service has a fact sheet, number 5029, on growing shiitake mushrooms. That's available at your county extension office. But Bill also gave us some good advice and told us to be sure and check with your local garden centers to see if they carry any supplies. But he did give us one source that does contain supplies and information located out of Enid, and we're giving you that information on the screen now. Well, if you're going to try your hand at growing mushrooms, we want to wish you the best of luck, but be sure and stick around and we'll give you updates on the trials of our growing mushrooms throughout the season.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.